Hello. Imagine with me for a moment that you are a new Vampire the Masquerade storyteller. You've prepared diligently for your chronicle. Your main characters are fleshed out and statted. Your conflicts are understood and ready to be laid out for your players. As you begin to create your scenes and guide your players through the world of Vampire the Masquerade, you run into a problem. Your players have explored a part of the world that you did not expect them to. Perhaps they became interested in a character that you had simply penciled in as a note, a security guard, or an interesting person at a bar. They decide to engage with this character, but you don't have a stat block for them. So when your player inevitably decides to make a roll against them, where will you get these stats from? How will you solve this problem? That's precisely what we're addressing in this video. Hello, I'm Zombie, and you're watching 3 Dots and Resources. This is our first episode, and we're kicking it off by looking at a problem in RPGs that Vampire the Masquerade solves very well. But can it be done better? Let's have a look. So the problem as we presented it is that characters who we did not intend for the players to interact with, or we did not even know as storytellers existed, may need statistics to be rolled against by our players or to take their own actions. Now the core book solves this problem very well with a system they call simple antagonist. It's very easy to miss, and it can be found on page 370. Let's have a look at what's there. Now, as you can see, the system as they presented is to create a description for the character that your players are interacting with. In many cases, these characters may not even have names. It could be detective, or police officer, or assassin. It could be grocery store clerk. The entire point is that your characters playing in your game may want to interact with these, and a dice roll may be warranted. So after creating your description for these characters, you should, as they lay it out, create a difficulty. Now, a standard mortal should be somewhere between 1 and 2 difficulties. Then, have your players roll the dice against this as a static difficulty. Now, the beauty of this system, which we're not going to go too much into right here, is that as you see underneath, they actually lay out how to do this as a combat encounter where you take damage as well. This is amazing. This prevents you from having to do an entire drawn-out, turn-by-turn combat that might take up an entire scene for just something that could have been done in a single dice roll. The security guard who comes across them. Do you need to know that in the first turn he draws his gun, in the second turn the player punches him? That consumes a lot of time. You can roll a single dice challenge, and with the rules that they have outlined here, calculate damage in the entire combat from one roll. While this system is elegant and it works, for vampire characters who are in your world, this may feel unsatisfying. Your players may be pulled out of the immersion if they realize that you're just fudging the numbers, that Methuselah that they went against was just a 6-dot difficulty, or that extremely gifted mortal ghoul who was meant to be a former race car driver in his life was just a 3-dot difficulty, no matter how they chose to approach it. You and your players may want something that's not quite a stat block, but is not quite a hand wave single difficulty challenge. For that, we're going to need something else. The solution I found comes from a user named CharonRX782 and was found on Reddit. Now, per him, he's based the system on the Met Vampire LARP rules for NPCs. and it's very easy to use. The system, as it works, says to assign a threat level of 1 to 5. Level 1 would be for a non-threatening average kind. These would be your grocery clerks, your average person. Level 2 would be a minor threat. Trained kind, these would be police officers, military, ghouls, thin bloods, fledgling kindred, and perhaps even new hunters. Level 3 would be threatening agents, other neonates, younger ancillae, trained hunters, and second Inquisition agents. Level 4 would be major threats. These would be older vampires, older ancillae. These would be your princes and primogens, vampires who are very dangerous to the players. And level 5 would be extreme dangers, Methuselahs, warform werewolves, and other major threats that your characters may encounter in the night as they go through their adventures. Now, how you use this threat level is to take that threat number, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and double it. And that becomes the amount of dice that this character will roll. So your players decide that they're going to roll strength plus brawl to wrestle with the level 3 vampire. Your character rolls their dice pool, and then the level 3 neonate vampire would roll 6 dice. Now, there are other things to consider as well, such as specialities. These are not just filler characters per se. These characters may be good at something, like a wealthy person's bodyguard and driver. So for every level of threat that these characters have, they will get one skill that they get to take a speciality in. Now, this speciality is different than the specialities that a player's character would have. These specialities add 2 dice. So, in our original example of our vampire fighting against a neonate vampire who's threat level 3, who in his life was a professional wrestler. Perhaps he's a Toreador, professional wrestler, or a Malkavian. This antagonistic professional wrestling vampire would roll their threat level times 3, 6 dice, and then they would add +2 for their brawl as a speciality, bringing them to 8 dice. Extremely dangerous. And because they're level 3, they would have more than one stat like this. Say, for example, one of your vampires decides that they're going to participate in a street race. The person who they're racing against is, let's say, a ghoul of an important vampire. We'll make them a level 2 threat for this situation. We would take level 2 threat multiplied by 2, so they have 4 dice. But in this situation, they have the driving skill as one of their skills, because that's the entire premise of their character. They would get 2 of these. So they would perhaps have driving and streetwise. So when your character makes whatever kind of test that they're going to make to simulate this race, this ghoul would roll 4 + 2 dice. But if he's interacting with the character in the way that is not one of his specialty skills, let's say the player character decides before the race that they're going to try to convince them to throw the race by bribing them, they would not get their bonus 2 dice for having a skill, because that's not either one of their skills. It creates strengths and weaknesses. It creates a dynamic sense of a character, not just, okay, beat the target number of 3. They're rolling dice against your dice. But it's not always the same number. In certain situations, the skills that they're very good at, they get bonuses. This helps create a more dynamic and interesting cast of characters who you may not have expected. It only takes a moment to say that this is a level 2 threat, and that their 2 specialties are shooting and melee, or that their 2 specialties are investigation and occult. I love this tool. I think when mixed with the other tools that the core rulebooks provide, that this system works very well in most situations. It can help you flesh out your game world in a way that's meaningful, interesting, and dynamic. I hope this has been useful to you. And I invite you to join me and my wife as we stream on Twitch. We stream usually Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for about 2 hours at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We get into a lot of goofy shenanigans, and we just have a lot of fun. Here's an example. What if he hit them?
Now there's bees.
Now there's bees! There's bees! I hope you would choose to join us. You can find the Reddit thread where I originally found this system in the description down below, and you can find links to my Instagram, Twitter, and of course my Twitch channel. Thank you guys for joining me in this video. I plan to try to release a video every week. I haven't decided what the next video will be yet. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe. I know you're probably tired of hearing that, but it really is helpful for me to understand what kind of content that you guys want to see, and to know that what I'm doing is helping you. Take care, guys. I'll see you next time.